You have like a start spiel you want to do, or should
Not
I introduce
really.
myself?
Uh, I'm kind
Yeah,
of just, you know, I'm all about when I go live, I just jump into things. Very
yeah.
casual about how we do things. You know, this isn't um like a
This is more two
actor
friends fucking
interview,
about.
you know, like sort of thing, right?
It's
Um,
more two friends fucking about, really.
right, exactly. Um, and anyone who wants to stop in here and ask questions or add to the discussion is certainly welcome.
Yeah. So that's the thing I've been asking Chad beforehand, is to think of like an enemy that they really really like, and then when we start the
Yeah,
conversation, we can bring that up.
yeah.
Prosper
So,
was fast on that question and jumped in
mhm,
on it immediately, so that's why I brought it up
awesome.
immediately.
Yeah.
Um,
So, to add a little bit of context, we are both developing fantasy RPGs. I believe both of them kind of have um, a Souls-like approach to the combat. Um, and the way we're doing things is obviously different. I believe Miranai, you have a more um, well, currently you have a more fast-paced system to where your combat is more flexible in the sense that it currently has the capabilities of providing a player with swift combat and having different you know different weapon types and different I suppose stances, if you will, with those different weapons, such as um, I believe you mentioned dual wielding before and things of that nature. Um,
yes.
so
So small correction there is that it's specific weapons have a specific move set. There's no
correct.
no
Hmm.
no no mode switching of those weapons
Right,
immediately.
right.
Just it's something we looked at one point, but
Hmm.
it's more fun with the variety of weapons because we'd rather make a bunch of different weapons and
Right. Hmm.
focus on getting those identities, I guess you could call them, for those weapons to what they're supposed to be doing. Instead of diluting those with further mechanics. So we choose our dilution of weapon variety rather than having smaller set of weapons with larger set of things you can do,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
As well as some silly yoke weapons that literally use like one animation that you
Right,
can do.
right,
Like
right.
here's a spoon you can hit someone with.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is simply because I believe really honestly that drives um I think from both of our experiences over the time that we've been developing our games and our RPG combat systems and our weapon types, albeit as I said, they're quite different in their own respect. Every RPG has its own methods of handling weapons, combat, and animation types for those weapons, as you just
Yeah.
mentioned, Mir and I. Um, with that, I believe it all kind of the way our enemies are designed all kind of roots from that, right? And in that sense, Mir and I, could you talk a little bit about how that maybe has influenced some of your enemy design in your game currently?
So
So
the
like in terms
speed
of
of which,
combat and
yeah,
yeah.
yes. So the speed of which combat is executed on is something we landed on from
Hmm.
looking at, looking a little bit at like games we like, but also I think the main thing in Dynastyr is the lack of stamina. So in
Right.
Dynastyr, it's all
Interesting
about
you
having
mentioned that.
the what?
It's interesting you mentioned that because I actually have a similar thing in my game, and I think there's so many different and honestly challenging ways of using that. And really, it's the
Yeah.
challenge that we derive from something like that. In the the way the player conserves that energy is very dependent on the weapon type, those skills, and you know what kind of stance they're following.
Yeah, for sure. So, see, I don't know if I can spin something specific off what you just said there.
Yeah.
I will say that I find it interesting that you have that approaching it from a different angle than using stamina.
Hmm.
Uh, in Dynasty, the initial thought of that came from. It's really funny. I watched a talk about design for World of Warcraft out of all the games in the world, and they were talking about the small change of instead of punishing player for dying, reward them for, like, I don't know, is it getting back to corpses fast? I forget what the mechanics of it is. I don't know, but they swapped a word basically in
Hmm.
the design to, instead of be like a death penalty, now it's like a positive thing, just by wording. And then the association with that mechanic became positive. And I was like, okay, so what's the opposite of stamina? And I realized that
Hmm.
was going to be keeping the player engaged with the enemy longer by doing well. So the way that's characterized in Dynasty and Dynasty's combat with the enemies is they have, you do a dodge, you get some adrenaline building up. You do a good block, you get some adrenaline building up. You hit, you get. I think we currently sustain adrenaline when you do hits, so it doesn't drain when you do hits. I'm not exactly certain. We're still tweaking exactly where these things pieces fit in, where the
Hmm.
sustain part fits in, and where the other parts
Right.
fit in. But the
Basically,
idea is
chaining
over time you build.
momentum
Yeah, but the idea is over
in
time
a
you
way.
build adrenaline. Adrenaline allows you to do a special attack,
Right. Right.
and that as long as you're playing well and you're not getting hit, you're not depleting your uh, adrenaline. So that's the core of the combat, which I'd say that drives a lot of the speed, because we don't want people backing away unless they are doing badly, they running out of health or stuff like that.
Hmm.
Maybe uh, maybe if there's like a particular attack that is more dangerous than others. There's quite a few examples of that in the game.
Yeah, and I think that kind of calls back also to something that I mentioned to you that I had a problem with recently. Um, and for those of you watching, bear in mind that my combat is, I believe, in a much earlier phase than yours, Mir and I. And so,
For us, it
an
says
an interest
raccoon,
an interesting
raccoon,
issue.
and
Yeah. An interesting issue that I faced was recently um trying to diversify my enemy types based on some feedback and some um, general basis from people that I've spoken to that play RPGs and understand broader aspects of enemy design. And that was that I had a bunch of like shielded enemies, right? And I had told you that I was like, oh, I got all these shielded enemies that are, and some of them just have a sword, right? They'll do the one-handed and raise their guard with the weapon, right?
yeah,
And still block with it. But they're all blocking, all of them are pretty much um moderate defense. And um what ended up happening was, because I had so many of them in like a small area, for example, I had a little ruin in this part of my level. And Mirna, you saw a screenshot of that, I believe. I sent you some screenshots of it. And so I had so many in that compact area, and then on top of that, it was a really good test for me because I was able to figure out what's the point of of imbalance with these enemies. What point is it too much? And so having like two shielded enemies, and then I have another enemy type in my game, which is more of a brute. Eventually, he's going to have two-handed, all that stuff, typical brute stuff, right? Um, but as of now, he's equally strong with just one, big sword, right? No shield, no blocking or anything. Um, but having that mix was a big test for me because um, you basically have what you end up with is you either approach with a certain strategy, you know how you're going to take one guy down, go to the next guy, and you can kind of close distance strategically with each enemy without pre-engaging certain ones and trying to go in all in at once, which would just get you killed. Um, and so that was an interesting thing for me to test that out, and in doing that, I realized that having, I think I had what like two, I might have more than two. No, I had two shielded enemies or two elite enemies in my game, and I had one grunt, and then I had the one brute. And then behind me, if I were to go back, and I'm kind of just explaining this vaguely, if I were to go back even further past the bridge that you cross to go to the ruins,
Yep.
that had an archer at the top. So I would go playtest, close distance back, and I'd fall all the way back there. I sometimes, if I made a mistake, you could get away with
Yep.
killing them all on the bridge. If I made a mistake, I'd go back and then I'd get shot by the archer and die. So it's again, I believe we all start at a point where there is there's a lot of balancing to do with enemy design in RPGs.
What's
And
the what's the most abstracty sort of monster
mm,
design that exists in the realms of
Wolfthorn.
Wolfthorn?
That would be the orc grunt. They they are they are more of a,
Because
non
like,
non-blocking. Some of them have
mm,
shields, some of them have like
mm.
axes, machetes, things like that, daggers. Some of them are pretty quick.
Can I make an example?
Um, what's that?
Can I make an example?
Yeah, sure.
So when I say abstract, it's in the form of, are the majority of the enemies things you'd expect in sort of a fantasy environment,
Oh yeah.
or can there
Oh
be
yeah.
things like, because you have things more recently, take Elden Ring or one of
You
those
have
things
all these different
where
crazy
you have
types of,
where you
yeah,
have like a really weird
weird
mushroom thing
creatures. Yeah. So like,
that does like one thing where it like spews a cloud of like
yeah.
poison or whatever.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. I mean, honestly, right now, my focus is on the two, well, the two main categories where there's multiple factions underneath those categories are things like, you have your bandits. There's a lot of orcs in my game, and particularly inspired by Lord of the Rings. Deeply inspired by that.
Yep.
And just really nasty creatures in those two spots as the most common enemies currently. But then you also have creatures of the world which would go in line with things like The Witcher 3, where you have creatures that are more monster-like, or mutant-like in a way, where you have things like wild ghouls. You have there's a special type of creature in my game, a variant of a dire wolf that you can come across, and those are quite dangerous because they're not just your standard wolf. They're big and they're nasty looking, and they can do a lot of damage. So there's things like that too, and there's so many different kinds of enemies in that regard. It just depends on what region of the world you're in. For
How
example, I
much?
have created these vampire type enemies that are also sort of like inspired by a mix of vampires and gargoyles. It's kind of weird, but it ended up working. The design worked out really well, and so they are present in more northern areas, and you'll see them flying around at night. And during the day, you could catch them by the caverns near the dark areas where the light isn't so prominent. And then further into that, you can go into lairs and things of that nature. So there's different types of. I guess we could go on another discussion. I do want to answer your question, um, Rosto and Mirani's chat,
Yeah.
about the grunt in the brunt. And so I don't know if I already sort of
I
answer
missed
that.
that.
I think
I
I
missed
did.
that.
I think I sort of answer that, but I mean, if you mean the difference between the yeah, like the like as I explained, the shielded enemies, which are more of I believe the brunt variant, they're more of the sort of elite, but not really elite, you have to close distance and you have to play a little strategically. Um, but the
Yeah.
difference between those two is well, the most obvious one is with a grunt, you don't really have to close as much distance. It's kind of just, um, evade basic attacks. They're gonna come at you all, mostly at once. Um, and their damage is also a bit less. So um, they're a bit more limited in terms of defense. So um,
Processing vampires and
but
gargoyles, so they're turning into stone on the sun or burning, or turning into stone and burning, or it's just
oh
a stone that's become hot under sun, and that's basically
yeah.
normal stone behavior. I'm confused.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a good question. Honestly, I haven't really gotten that far with it yet, or how much influence of like, the gargoyle side goes into it. It was more just based on the design so far, in terms of the aesthetics, really. So not so much deriving from the characteristics of like a gargoyle. It's more towards the vampire side, honestly. Um, so yeah, I haven't really taken that into account yet, honestly, but it's definitely a good point. If you intend to pull different things from different creatures, it's certainly something to consider
Yeah, so it also depends entirely
what you're
on
pulling it from.
whether you pull from traditional lore or if you're creating
Right.
something that is
Yeah. In this case, it's brand new. It's
relatable
something.
but unique,
Yeah. In
maybe.
this case, it's brand new, and it's something that just doesn't not really derives from anything besides just general concepts and looks more so than characteristics. What I would say. And that goes
Mhm.
for a lot of things. I mean, in terms of enemies that you can find like that in Wolfthorn, and that's, I mean, it's mostly, I spin a take on the characteristics slightly, but not so much. It's more towards the aesthetics, and then I create the characteristics. I build the things on top of that because really, honestly, I enjoy doing it. Um, I enjoy making something new that doesn't really exist. So
Yeah, so
that's
I don't
really
know if
kind
you
of
did
the whole.
this to a degree, but in Dynasty we have a subversion of the
Mhm.
expectation of what
What they
like
think
a
it is,
mythical
and
archetype
yeah,
is. So we have a specific type of people who are called the Enukin, and the Enukin are they are to some degree succubi and incubi inspired, like visually inspired.
right.
So
Hmm.
the idea is people will assume them to be uh have some sort of like hypersexual look to
Right.
them, uh and they have that thing of like the idea in the world is that they would lure men to do whatever, but the backstory to that is something akin to their race was almost extinct because of humans and they had to do that to survive. So subverting like that idea of like why they're doing what they're doing and why they've ended up in that position, so it's like now it's no longer a position of power from them, it's basically like, oh, we had to turn to prostitution to survive.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of sort of like an example of what I just said. And honestly, I think it's something that is you know, it's kind of done quite often in most people don't most people don't pick up on it unless you're well informed about the creature or character or whatnot. There's always assumptions of a certain creature that looks like this should behave this way, and a certain monster that has this look should act like that, or is said to be derived from certain actual
Have you
mythological
played
or
have you
folktale
played Dragon
creatures.
Age Origins?
Um, I haven't actually played through it in a while. I think I played the first couple of games, but it's been so
Yes, the
long.
first one. Just the first.
Yeah, um, it was a very long time. I
Yeah.
honestly don't remember much about,
Likewise,
but
I do remember that this reminds me a little bit of the conflict between the werewolves and the elves in that game,
yep, yeah,
where it's very easy to make assumptions about things, and then it turns out it's like a whole
hmm yeah,
there's like a whole like there's not a clear idea of who necessarily is right, wrong, that sort of stuff. It's an entire like werewolves are their own thing, and before getting there, you don't understand like the meaning of the curse that they're carrying around and stuff like that. So it's to bring this back to what we're talking about for enemy design and stuff. I All of this world building contextualizes obviously the what sort of
exactly. I'd like to go back to
what was
that.
the thing you have to encounter in the world.
Yeah,
And we could, as designers, just say, here's a wolf, here's a mercenary. But it's way more interesting if that
to
mercenary
have
is like,
different,
he's the mercenary of the
and he's
band of
in, maybe he's
the,
in their
the bear.
area, right?
And
And maybe he's in a
yeah,
zone that's where they have a lair nearby or something, or they have a place of gathering.
yeah.
And that's interesting to me, and I like to actually go back to that. But before I continue, thank you for bringing this up, Prosto, from your nice chat. Honestly, a very good thing to bring up. And it's something that I don't think I've really gone over too much. you know, it's mostly something that, um, again, most people ignore. So it's nice to hear that somebody is picking up on the like the inspirations behind things and asking the right questions. Because it does certainly matter, and how much you're pulling from it again is entirely dependent on the creator of the creature, right? But again, it's all valid questions I think we ask ourselves when we create these characters or creatures or whatever they are. And we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to take from those things? So thank you for asking that question. It's not a stupid question at all. You spun up a whole conversation on that, so thank you for asking. Um, but to continue on, so with the idea of world building and how that influences our enemy designs, um, one other thing I wanted to bring up from Wolfthorn is how we have, currently there is the interior locations that I'm working on. Some of the types are actually quite interesting and have to do a lot with, the types of enemies you'll encounter in each area. The only thing that hasn't been developed so much would be more exterior influences, so things outside of those interior entrances, things that would be, surrounding that area. That's something we're working on. But the whole idea is, essentially having, monster and creature layers. And I know I've brought up the term layer a couple times now. And the idea is to have those in different areas and different regions, in obviously different structures. And that kind of honestly can kind of compare it to, some of the things Skyrim does as well. There's multiple RPGs that have done things like this, but I feel like there's always new, interesting ways of doing it. Um, and so we have
You
like these
know,
different interiors and layers and places of gathering for those creatures, based on the region zones.
do you know how the original Gothic works?
I played
I
I played Gothic as well, but
Oh,
not very much.
cool.
I think I
Okay, so
played the third one. It was one of the ones that wasn't taken so well or received
yeah,
very
yeah.
well.
So, but
But
the original Gothic does
yeah.
something very interesting with its world slash enemies in that
Mm,
uh, there's only one spawn of them, right? So you go somewhere, you kill something, it's dead. And then as the game progresses, they will spawn in other types of enemies and other types of encounters. Nice. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
so for instance, you get the second chapter or whatever. It's not. I think it's just divided by chapters if I remember correctly. But you're further into the quest line basically, and then they spawn like more dire wolves or like specific dire wolves, and then you kill those. But then there's like nothing left in the world after that. So that gives them a few cool benefits. Um, one is that they can pace the game more or less. Not, no, I wouldn't say perfectly, but they know exactly how much experience points people are going to have to spend.
Right.
They can pace the quest in a way where like, okay, so they have these quests for these things they have to turn in, so they know the. I don't know if drop rates are absolute in that game or if there are chance based, but I'm assuming they're sort of absolute. Like if they have one spawn, they can just say, hey, this guy is gonna drop this. Um,
Right.
I'm not sure about that though. Like that might be interesting to look at. So they can pace the quests and stuff around that, so they know, oh, the player's gonna have one of these or one of that, or which is a cool benefit. The downside of that, and I tried this for doing a series, that eventually the world feels really empty.
Empty, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's like, I mean, I feel like honestly with the way that I've explained things, it's a more simple concept in that regard, you know? Having designated like interior locations that are of significance to those creatures in areas that are very populated with those creatures, or they're more, you know, inclined to be in that area. And I think there's maybe a couple things that can be done there that are relative to what you just explained here. And that would be in the sense of clearing those locations out, and then you know, again, kind of balancing it in a way as you progress through. Um, you know, you're clearing out locations, but maybe finding a way to make it so that it's not, you don't have that emptiness factor when you're all done. You know, without there's always the simple things of resetting cells and things like that. But I believe there's maybe some other ways to explore as well there. I haven't gotten too far into it yet, but it's definitely something that's being thought on heavily.
Yeah, when you say lair, it makes me think
Yeah,
of
I'm old school, so that's the term I'm using.
yeah. When you say lair, it makes me think of
Yeah.
well, obviously evil lair, but like I go further back in my memory. What I'm thinking about is a specific
Mhm.
mod for the game Morrowind, like the
Yeah.
original Morrowind.
Yeah. And that's
There is a
honestly,
mod for that game where you can hunt the cliff racers to extinction, and I think that
see,
brings
there's an interesting thing right
that's
there.
a
That's
great
interesting. Yeah.
that's a great segue here to enemy designs where people have hated cliff racers for since the beginning of
Oh my
Morrowind.
gosh, yes.
These
I hate them.
dirty creatures, and you have roll chances to try to hit them, right? Because that's how Morrowind works. And usually you can't even hit them, and then they're too far up, and their hitboxes are fucking weird, and it's always a mess.
Right.
And if you just run through the world, you will just amass a huge amount of them that come flying to you. So with this mod, hunting them to extinction, that is an interesting concept where you can present like, say, if
Yeah,
it
see,
would be.
there is that is exactly what I mean in the other ways of pursuing things like that. And that alone I think would be, you know, you could again spend so much on that, and that's, you know, as you just mentioned, something like that could be, I think, very engaging when it comes you know, clearing out layers or whatever we want to refer to them as. Um, some of them I refer to as just simply monster nests, because some of them just have monsters that are more more primitive, if you will. You know, so I think in that sense, you know, again, it's something that can be, I think, explored so much. You know, it's been explored before in different ways, but you know, there's always, I think, something you can do to make it interesting.
Moment I noticed one of these like uh updates that we have automatically on the channel is like not doing the right thing.
We just froze for a minute.
Did we?
For a split second. We're good now.
One second, we're good now. Cool. So Also saying you finished your games, no biggie. Haha.
Yeah.
Raccoon shield, flaming sword. I don't know.
Man, it's
You
only
have
been
you've got your emoji game ready with the raccoon and everything,
oh
but you
yeah,
seem to be
you got me
seems to be
yesterday. I was like um you had uh you had mentioned something about having a special guest on the stream. And you kind of I don't know. I took it as a third person sort of thing, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be
oh
another
yeah.
person on the stream. Besides me. Oh, that's great. We'll have a little party going on. I mean, yes, we have people in the stream as well, so technically we do have a little party going on here. But um, I was like, oh, really? Party,
Party.
You explain to me. You explain to me. Oh no, you're the special guest. Oh yeah, me. Right. Yeah, it's me.
I yes, I'm special now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to believe we've been going on 30 minutes. This has been, I think, a really great discussion so far.
Oh yeah,
Um,
everything is running
we've
pretty
covered a lot
smoothly.
so far. Um,
Yeah. So let's bring up the question that I brought with me here, really, for the chat at least, of what are some of the favorite enemies uh,
oh yeah,
that
yeah,
they have, and then we can talk a little bit about why. What makes those interesting encounters. I have one on my mind, and of course I didn't ask you beforehand, so
hmm
I might start yabbering about my pick while you have a little bit of a think about your pick, if you
right.
may, if you want to. I'm putting
Yeah,
you on the
of
spot here.
course. I would love to add to that. Um,
So starting out conceptually, I love enemies that are one-offs. And that's weird for someone who likes very complex, engaging combat. But few things speak to me as much as like a well-designed, like one-off enemy from something like you know like a Zelda game.
right. hmm
So they
So
have those.
by one-offs, could you elaborate a small bit
Yes.
on that?
So a one-off means that they basically do one thing,
Right, right,
and that they add to the situation of combat or whatever. And sometimes it's only them.
right.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So one of my one example I find really nice in Zelda in Ocarina of Time, they're really fucking annoying, but you have these like big plant-like things that unearth from the ground
hmm
and they spin around like they're death spinners, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what are they called? Beyblades, basically.
Basically,
Big,
it sounds.
they're
Yeah.
big sentient Beyblades.
Yeah.
And it's so like you can sometimes encounter several one of them when you run through an area. They're very simple, but on the night times when the skeletons come out and you run around, it might actually turn into like a bit of a tussle. Like obviously the games always feel like on the safer side because it's Nintendo.
Yeah. Oh my
Thank
gosh, that
you.
scared the shit out of me. That scared the shit out of me. Sorry, I have an announcement thing on here. Thank you for the
Right.
follow. MX, I believe.
Yeah, if I might take that opportunity for that as you say that to say that like if you're enjoying the
Yeah.
stream, then you can go follow Aerix over there, or you can hit the follow over here.
Yeah. I think I have your YouTube linked in here or your Twitch or something. I don't know. I'll have to check the links. I'll add it in here.
Is all good. It's
But
all good.
yeah.
So so Zelda has a tendency to have like lots of cool one-offs, and a one that I pick out maybe from more like generic like platform game or whatever would be
right.
like dancing sword type of enemy. And it's like you literally just have to like avoid them and they might dance into you. It's in that simplicity when they do like one thing and you try to take that into different situations where it can actually like matter for an action game.
Yeah.
The game Onimusha Dawn of Dreams does it really
Yeah.
well. Really
Recently
well.
did a bunch of enemy designs for small projects that kind of pulled a lot of things in a similar way as that, having just a bunch of one-off enemies where we started. One of them was actually very simple. It was just, an enemy kind of inspired by sort of like a Goomba-like creature from Mario. You know, a lot of people want to do that sort of thing, but the one we did was kind of interesting because we set up our own way of doing it, and so this one, I mean, pretty much it was just the charging, you know, and you know, in a different concept as your traditional your traditional like Super Mario games. This one was 3D and you know, more of like the Super Mario Galaxy sort of thing, right? Where you would have you know, different ways of getting around, and then also the traversal that we had added in the game allowed us to do different things with that enemy. For example, having wall running and things of that nature, um, double jumping and things like that. I believe this is just frozen. Are we frozen? No. Double check here. What's going on? I think we might be frozen. Be here. Technical difficulties. Mm-hmm. Gotta change that alert sound. Hey, what's up, Prosto? Don't know if Mira and I just went offline or not. I think he did. Could be wrong. Go back. Bear with me for a minute. Back on here. I don't know if he's still live or not. His stream died. Yeah. Currently have the screen off because he's disconnected. But trying to see if I can get a hold of him real quick. I think he's gone offline. Yeah, bit unexpected, but yeah, that's the annoying stream the stream slide that I put in here. I had actually had to get rid of it for a little while because people were getting pissed off with it being in the corner, always popping up. But I'd added it back just for this occasion. Yeah. Well, let's see here. So I think he has completely gone offline for now, which sucks. Um, but yeah, right now. Trying to see how we're doing on time here. We are currently in about 40 minutes almost. So, I mean, with that, we can do. I'm thinking of pausing the stream for a minute and waiting till he comes back, or we can just hang out here. But we have nothing planned currently. He's popping up. Only indication that he's streaming nothing. Oh, I have a currently I have nothing on the screen. Before I had let's see here. That's the wrong scene that I have in my my OBS software. Um, Currently just pause the screen for a minute. Let's see. I don't currently have a, and this is something I need to do as I get more back into streaming, is I need to set up a camera only scene, which I currently don't have. So um, currently we're just kind of sitting here. Not good. Um, but hopefully we'll have that set up by next stream, in case something like this happens. So we'll be able to go back to the other scene. And okay, so I think what we'll do here is, because we have nothing planned, honestly, and we're kind of just in a lull here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stream for now. But what we'll do is, if he comes back online, we'll go ahead and pick up where we left off. I believe the topic of conversation was we were talking a bit about enemy design with a side
Thank
project we
you.
had done. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that, Prosto. But yeah, we were talking a little bit about enemy design of a project that I worked on, and having different like one-off enemies for uh, for different kinds of projects, and having that be the basis um, for enemy design in a project. So hopefully we can turn back to that if he comes back online. But yeah, it scares the shit out of me too. I need to change the sound effect, honestly, or make it quieter. I have no idea how to do that. I think I have it in my Stream Elements or Stream Labs or something. But that's also on my to-do list. Quite loud. But yeah, I'm supposed to wrap this up. For those of you who are new to the stream, I do have all of my links in the panel, so you can join our Discord in there. That's under the Studio Discord category. That's where we post all of our Unreal stuff, game development. You can also learn a bit more about the project, the RPG game project Wolfthorn that we mentioned in the stream. And then also we have a YouTube channel that's linked in there as well, where we're posting videos on there that have to do with Unreal. And lately we've been doing some level design videos there. So there's a couple projects we have planned for that. One big one in December that's going to be released, and it's going to be a level design video. So, and then going on further, I've had people ask me about about creating level design breakdowns and tutorials and things of that nature. So, into next year, that's something I think we'll be exploring more on the YouTube channel. So if that interests you, or you are interested in knowing about level design, that's something we're going to be doing a lot next year. So something exciting going on there. But yeah, thank you all for sticking by through also having a black screen on for like 20 minutes. And unexpected things happen, but we got to make it work. And so if he returns, we'll be back live. But otherwise, hopefully we can do a stream, possibly this weekend. We'll see. Goal: stay alive more year. Right. Yeah. That's my goal. Honestly. No, I take it by the day. So everything we do, you know, yes, we plan things, but if one thing doesn't work out, we just we honestly we go to the next thing and we make it work. So um, until we find something that works well. And so far, that for me, that's been the level design videos. People have really loved those. So that's something that I'm working on, at least on the YouTube channel side of things, beyond everything else. But yeah, I will catch you all soon. And if he comes back online, I actually want to check and see if is he live currently? You said he's not live, right? I haven't even checked. I've just been, let's see here. Let's go to Twitch. Yeah, and hopefully by next stream I'll have a proper camera scene set up. I had just moved a couple things around, so yeah, he's completely offline. That's a bummer. All good. We got a pretty good conversation on it today, so I think we pretty good stream for the time that we had, and yep, hopefully we can do another one. Well, honestly, I think we'll have more planned. With the co-streams, I really enjoy talking to Mir and I. Every time we have a discussion, we go deep into things, and we always have things to spur off of our conversations, which is very good. Things that we discuss can go quite into detail, and that I really like. So certainly would like to do more with him, and that's definitely planned. So stay tuned for that. And if he comes back online again, we'll hop in another stream. We'll pick up from there. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you for stopping by and again sticking through all this. Um, and I'll catch you all in the next stream. Peace out.